The battlefield was on fire. Smoke covered the broken buildings. The sky was dark with dust and ash. Loud explosions shook the ground again and again. Red and blue laser beams cut through the smoke like lightning. Bodies of both humans and aliens lay everywhere, silent reminders of the price of war. Private David Carter moved quickly between the rubble, his heart pounding in his chest. He had seen many battles before, but this one felt different. Something in the air, something heavy made it harder to breathe. He checked his rifle and took cover behind a collapsed wall. "Echo Team, do you copy?" He spoke into his com. "Copy," a voice replied. "Fall back to Sector 9. Repeat, Sector 9. Too hot here." David was about to move when he heard it. A sound, not an explosion, not a scream. A cry. It was soft at first, almost lost in the noise of war. But then he heard it again, high-pitched, trembling, and full of fear. A child. David froze. He turned toward the sound, confused. There shouldn't be any children here. This was an alien battlefield. Civilians had been evacuated weeks ago. But the cry came again. David stepped over a fallen beam, slowly, carefully. His boots crunched over broken glass. He followed the sound through the smoke. Behind a pile of metal debris, half covered by rubble, he saw her. A small alien girl, no more than 4 feet tall. Her skin was pale blue, with glowing white eyes. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her knees. She rocked back and forth, crying softly. She was alone. David looked around. Enemy territory. No allies in sight. No movement, lie of fire, smoke, and death. The girl looked up. Their eyes met. In that moment, time stopped. She didn't look like an enemy. She looked like a scared child, lost, helpless, and cold. Her small body shook with fear. David stepped forward. His rifle was still in his hands, but he lowered it slowly. He raised his other hand, showing her he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't understand the words, but his voice, calm and soft, seemed to reach her. Her crying slowed, but she didn't move. David took another step, then another. He knelt beside her and set his rifle down. Slowly, he reached out. She flinched, but didn't run. "I've got you," he whispered. He lifted her into his arms. She was light. Too light, thin and weak, like she hadn't eaten in days. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed nearby. A plasma shot hit just 10 meters away. David ducked instinctively, shielding the child with his body. Dirt and debris flew into the air. The enemy was close. "Echo Team, I found a civilian child in Alien." David shouted into his com. "Leave it," the voice ordered. "We're under fire. Get out now." David looked at the child. She clung to his jacket, her face buried in his chest. She was trembling, and tears wet the fabric. "Negative," David said. "I'm not leaving her." Gunfire cracked behind him. He picked up his rifle with one hand and held the child close with the other. Then he ran. Bullets and plasma blasts flew past him. He jumped over rubble, slid behind walls, and ducked under broken ceilings. His legs burned, but he didn't stop. He had one mission now: save the child. A drone flew overhead, scanning. David ran into a dark alley and hid behind a crushed transport vehicle. He could hear the drone beeping, scanning for movement. He held his breath. The girl whimpered softly. David pressed her closer, gently whispering, "You're safe. I've got you." The drone flew past without noticing them. David let out a quiet sigh of relief. He looked at the child again. She was watching him now. Her eyes were wide, but no longer full of panic. There was something else: trust. It hit him harder than any blast. He had lost his daughter 2 years ago in another war. She had been caught in a crossfire. He had never forgiven himself. Now, here was another chance. A chance to do what he couldn't do before. Protect the innocent. David checked his map. He was far from base, and enemies were everywhere. But he didn't care. He stood up, the girl still in his arms. "I'm getting you out of here." "Hush," he said. Another explosion rocked the ground. But David didn't stop through fire, gunfire, and fear. He moved forward, because sometimes bravery isn't about fighting. It's about saving one small life. Even when the whole world is burning. David held the small alien girl tightly against his chest as he moved through the broken city. Her small hands clung to his jacket, her face hidden in his shoulder. She was no longer crying, but he could feel her trembling. Her blue skin felt cold against his. The sounds of battle echoed all around him: gunfire, explosions, and the distant hum of alien war machines. The smoke stung his eyes, but he didn't stop. Every second wasted could mean death for both of them. "Echo Team," David called through his comm, breathing heavily, requesting safe route. "I have the alien child. Need evac direction." There was a long pause. Then the voice of his commander returned cold and sharp. "Private Carter. Abandon the target and return. That's an enemy civilian, not our problem." David stopped, crouching behind a burnt-out vehicle. He looked down at the girl. She was silent, eyes closed tightly, but her tiny body trembled with fear. "She's just a child," David said. "She's scared. She's hungry. I'm not leaving her behind." Another pause, then static. "Do what you want, Carter. You're on your own." The signal cut off. David sighed and lowered the comm. Alone now. He peeked out from behind the wreckage. The street ahead was open and dangerous. No cover. But he had to cross it to reach the old metro tunnels. If he could get underground, he might find a way back to safety. "All right," he whispered. "Hold on tight." The girl looked at him, wide-eyed. She didn't understand the words, but she nodded slowly. David took a deep breath, then ran. Lasers and plasma blasts filled the air. He zigzagged between craters and rubble, his boots slamming against the cracked pavement. Enemy soldiers shouted nearby. But he didn't stop. A blast hit the ground just behind him, close enough to lift him off his feet. He hit the ground hard. Rolling to protect the girl, dirt and heat washed over them. He gritted his teeth and forced himself up, limping now. "Come on, come on." Another shout. He turned to see an enemy trooper aiming at him. A tall alien in heavy armor. Its weapon was ready. David had no time to raise his gun. He twisted his body, shielding the girl. A shot rang out, but it didn't hit him. Instead, a strange thing happened. The alien soldier froze. It looked at the child in David's arms. Its glowing eyes softened for a moment. Its weapon lowered. Slightly, the child opened her eyes. She stared at the soldier and whispered something in her own language. The alien soldier blinked, and then turned away. David didn't waste the moment. He ducked into an alley and kept running. His heart was pounding now, both from fear and confusion. Why had the soldier stopped? Why let them go? There was something more going on here. He reached a broken doorway and slipped inside. It was a ruined shop, dusty and dark. He set the child down gently and gave her a small piece of food from his pack. She hesitated, then ate slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. David sat down beside her, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn photo, a little girl, human, smiling, brown hair in pigtails. "My daughter," he whispered. Her name was Emily. The alien child looked at the photo. She touched it softly. She died, David continued, his voice low. War took her from me. I couldn't save her. Tears filled his eyes. But maybe I can save you. Outside. More gunfire. David stood up again. He checked his ammo. Low, he picked up the girl. She had finished eating and rested her head on his shoulder. For the first time, she looked peaceful. But peace never lasted long in war. As David stepped outside, a squad of enemy drones spotted him. They fired instantly. David dove behind cover, clutching the girl tightly. A piece of metal scraped across his leg. Cutting deep, he grunted in pain, but didn't let go of her. He reached for a smoke grenade, pulled the pin, and threw it. Thick white smoke filled the street. Using the cover, David ran again, limping, but never slowing. His arms were shaking now. His vision was blurry, but he kept moving, because saving her meant everything. Because sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules. Because this child, small alien life, had looked at him with the same trust Emily once had. And he wasn't going to fail this time. The smoke cleared slowly. David's lungs burned as he crouched behind a broken wall, holding the alien girl tightly. Her head rested on his shoulder, eyes closed, her breath light and shaky. Blood from the cut on his leg soaked into his uniform. But he stayed quiet. He could hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, not human. A shadow moved past the smoke. David reached for his weapon, but stopped halfway. The figure stepping through the haze wasn't shooting. It wasn't running. It walked with calm purpose, holding a sleek alien rifle. Its armor dark and glowing faintly along the edges. It was the same enemy soldier who had aimed at him. Earlier, now face to face, they stared at each other across the seat. They stared at each other across the broken space. Two soldiers from opposite sides of the war. One holding a child, the other holding a gun. David's finger tensed near his trigger. But he didn't raise his rifle. The alien soldier didn't raise his either. Instead, the alien looked at the child in David's arms. Her glowing eyes opened slightly and locked onto the soldier. She said something in her native tongue, to a soft, like a name, maybe. The soldier's posture changed. The hard, straight stance softened. His glowing eyes widened just a little. He stepped closer, lowering the gun even more. David could see. Now, this wasn't just any child. She meant something to the alien family. Royalty, or maybe a symbol. David stood slowly, keeping one arm protectively around the child. "I'm not your enemy," he said calmly. "I just want to get her to safety." The alien didn't reply, but he didn't attack either. The child reached out a small blue hand toward the armored figure. She touched his chest plate. The alien let her. A few seconds passed in silence. Then the soldier spoke in a slow, broken version of Earth's language. "Why? Human, save her." David looked down at the girl, because no one else would. There was a pause. The alien nodded slowly, then pointed behind him toward a collapsed structure. Safe tunnel, under the ruins. Quiet path. David blinked. "You're helping me." Alien glanced around, then back at David. No war for her. Not child. Not today. With that, the soldier turned away and disappeared into the fog. Silent as he came, David stood still, stunned, in a world full of hate. Someone chose peace for just a moment. He looked at the girl. She was watching him quietly now, her small hands still clinging to his jacket. "Let's go," he whispered. He moved toward the broken building the soldier had pointed to. Inside, he found the entrance to a half-buried tunnel. It was dark and damp, but quiet. The enemy had clearly used it before. Old supplies and alien signs lined the walls. David turned on a small flashlight and continued forward, carrying the girl close as they walked through the tunnel. Echoes of distant battles faded behind them. For the first time in hours, there was silence. He sat down to rest. The child sat beside him now, watching the light from the flashlight reflect off the tunnel walls. She reached out, fascinated. David smiled. He handed her a small light from his belt. She held it like a treasure. Laughing softly, it was the first time he heard her laugh. It broke something in him. He wiped his face with his sleeve. Dirt, sweat, and blood mixed. But in that moment, none of it mattered. "What's your name?" he asked softly, even knowing she wouldn't understand. She tilted her head, then placed her small hand on her chest and said something that sounded like Rhea. "Rhea," David repeated. She smiled. Then she reached out and gently touched his chest. He smiled back. "David," she repeated slowly. "Almost right." They sat in silence after that man and child, soldier and alien bound by. A single choice to trust above them. The war still raged, but here, in this dark, forgotten tunnel, there was peace. A fragile moment, but one worth holding on to. The tunnel led to silence. David moved carefully through the dark path, flashlight in one hand, Rhea now sleeping in his arms, and the other. The walls were made of old alien stone, curved and carved with symbols that glowed faintly blue. The air was cold, but still it felt like a forgotten place at the end of the tunnel. He found an open space, a large chamber deep underground. Broken. Columns surrounded a cracked stone floor. Bits of old tech and dust covered the ground. Some kind of ancient alien temple or shelter. He laid Rhea gently on a soft patch of cloth he pulled from his pack. She didn't wake. Her breathing was calm now. David sat beside her and leaned against the wall. Closing his eyes, memories came quickly. His daughter, Emily. Human, bright smile. Always running to him when he came home. Her laugh, her hugs, and then a day of the bombing. David clenched his fists. He hadn't been there in time. One moment, she was playing outside. The next dash, gone. It wasn't his fault, they said. But he never believed that. That was the day something inside him broke. He opened his eyes and looked at Rhea. She looked so small, curled up in sleep. A stranger from another world. Yet something about her felt familiar. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out Emily's old drawing of paper, almost falling apart, with stick figures and stars drawn in crayon. "Daddy and me, Emily," had written. David wiped his face again and placed the paper back. He heard movement. His hand went to his rifle, but then stopped. It wasn't a threat. Rhea stirred. She blinked up at him, confused at first, then sat up slowly. Long fingers rubbed her eyes. "You're safe," David whispered. "We're safe." She looked around the temple, then back at him. She nodded. David offered her a protein bar. She sniffed it, made a face, then bit it slowly. After 2 bites, she smiled a small, thankful smile. David chuckled softly. "Yeah, not the best food." They sat in silence for a few minutes, resting. Then something caught Rhea's eye. She stood and walked toward the center of the room where the stone symbols glowed faintly. She placed her hand on one dot. Suddenly, soft blue light filled the chamber. David stood, alarmed, but nothing bad happened. The carvings came to life. Images of her people, peaceful and proud, appeared in glowing shapes on the walls. Families, leaders, children. Playing. It wasn't a war room. It was a place of memory. A place to remember what was lost. Rhea turned to David and pointed at one image. It showed a young girl surrounded by adult aliens wearing armor and robes. She said a word again, "Rhea." David stepped closer. The image, it looked like her. She wasn't just any child. She was important. Maybe royalty. Maybe a leader's daughter. No wonder the alien soldier let her go. She's more than just a child, David whispered to himself. She's their future. That's when he heard a sound deeper in the tunnels. Not loud, but not natural. EITHERA clicking. A scraping. He raised his weapon and stepped in front of Rhea. Something was down here. A forgotten machine. An old defense system. Or worse, something alive. He moved slowly toward the sound, staying close to the wall. His flashlight flicked across broken statues and cracked tiles. Then he saw it. A crawler, an alien machine. Half broken, still functioning. Its metal legs clicked along the floor. One glowing red eye scanned side to side. It hadn't seen them yet. David turned off the flashlight and crouched low. He returned to Rhea and motioned for her to stay quiet. She obeyed, but then her small toy light from earlier rolled across the floor. Click, click, click. The crawler turned. It saw them. A loud alarm beeped from its chest. A red beam locked onto David. Run! David shouted. He picked Rhea up and ran through the temple, laser blasts flying past him. He ducked behind a stone pillar as one beam hit the ground beside him, spraying sparks. He raised his rifle and fired back 3. Short bursts. The crawler sparked and shuddered, but kept moving. Not today, David growled. He looked down at Rhea. She was holding something, a broken stone from the temple wall, glowing with energy. Throw it, he asked. She nodded. He took it and tossed it toward the crawler. The moment it touched the machine, the entire crawler shook violently. Blue energy exploded outward, frying circuits. Boom. The crawler collapsed, smoke rising from its chest. Silence returned. David stood there, panting, holding Rhea tightly. She saved them again. He looked at her, and she smiled shyly, proud. David smiled too. You're full of surprises, Rhea. They walked back to the resting area. The temple lights slowly dimmed again. As they sat down once more, David looked up at the stone ceiling. He didn't know how far this would go. He didn't know if he'd make it out alive, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't just protecting a child anymore. He was protecting a future. The temple was silent once more. David sat beside Rhea in the soft blue glow of the ancient room. His heartbeat was finally slowing, but his mind was racing. The alien machine was destroyed. But someone nor something had activated it. That meant one thing. They weren't alone anymore. Rhea was drawing on the dusty floor with a piece of broken stone. She hummed softly, unaware of the danger returning to the surface above. She had trusted him without question. Now it was his job to get her home alive. David checked his rifle. 4 bullets left. No grenades, no medkit. His leg still ached from the earlier wound, but he could move. That was enough. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his old cum device, and turned it back on. Crackling, a voice came through, static-filled, but clear enough. Carter, do you read? Command wants answers. Where are you? David hesitated, then slowly lifted the device. I'm alive. I've secured a high-value alien child. Repeating high value, not hostile. Possibly political or royal. A long pause. Then another voice came through. A voice David recognized, Colonel Mathers. You're risking your life for an enemy, Carter, Mathers said coldly. Orders are simple. Return without the alien, or you'll be marked as a deserter. David's fingers tightened around the cum. No, I'm not leaving her. She's not human, Carter. She's a child. Silence. Then the cum cut off. David dropped it to the ground and sighed. So that's it. I'm on my own. Rhea looked up at him with curious eyes. Then dashed footsteps. David stood quickly. Raising his rifle, a figure moved through the temple's entrance stall, armored. Familiar THE, it was the alien soldier from before. David froze, so did the alien. Rhea's eyes lit up. She stood and ran to the armored figure. He knelt and opened his arms, catching her gently. They embraced. David lowered his rifle slowly. The alien looked at him. She, alive, the soldier said in broken English. Because of me, David replied. And now your people will be looking for her. The alien nodded. Yes, many. Hunters, not all. Kind David stepped forward. You helped me before. Why? The alien looked down at Rhea, then back at David. She is future, not war. You protect her. I see that. I protect too. David understood, in war, some things were bigger than sides. He walked over, carefully, then helped me get her to safety. We both want the same thing. The alien hesitated, then extended his hand. A gesture of trust. David shook it. A pact was formed silent, powerful, and rare. 2 soldiers. 2 enemies, now allies. Rhea smiled brightly, watching them. We need to move, David said. My own. People might come for me soon. The alien nodded. I know way. Secret path. Safe, old evac route. Together, they moved through the temple's back chamber. The alien pushed aside a heavy stone plate, revealing a narrow tunnel with markings possibly old escape routes used by the temple builders long ago. Before entering, David stopped. He looked back at the temple. For a short while, this forgotten place had been a home, a moment of peace. Then he turned and followed the soldier into the dark. They traveled for nearly an hour. David carried Rhea when she got tired. The alien soldier, who introduced himself with a name David couldn't pronounce, led the way. Finally, they reached a circular opening, blocked by metal bars. The alien pressed a hidden switch. The bars groaned and lifted on the other side. Moonlight, open land, forest, quiet. They were outside the city at last. David stepped out, breathing the fresh night air deeply. It smelled of wet leaves and earth-knot smoke, but the peace didn't last long. From above, a spotlight turned on. A human dropship. David's cum crackled again. Private Carter. You are surrounded. Drop your weapon and step away from the alien. He cursed and looked at the sky. 3 drones hovered nearby. Soldiers were rappelling down ropes. They tracked me, he muttered. The alien soldier stepped forward, but David stopped him. No, he said. We do this my way. He stepped into the light, hands raised, Rhea beside him. A voice shouted again. Identify yourself. Private David Carter, he said loudly. Serial number 477B. I have in my care a peaceful alien civilian. Child, I refuse to abandon her. A captain approached, weapon drawn. You're under arrest for ignoring orders, Carter. Turn over the alien. David stood tall. No. The alien soldier stepped beside him, weapon raised. Eyes glowing. Tension filled the air. Rhea stepped forward between the 2 sides. She raised both her hands small, glowing, and touched David's leg and the alien's hand. A soft blue light spread around them. The soldiers paused. A message was being broadcast, images, feelings, memories right into their minds. The truth, David's bravery, his kindness, Rhea's fear. Their friendship silence. One by one, the human soldiers lowered their weapons. The captain stared for a long moment, then turned to David. What happens now? David looked down at Rhea. We protect her. The forest was quiet, but tension hung in the air like a storm ready to break. David stood with his hands still raised. Beside him, Rhea clung tightly to his arm. The alien soldier, his unlikely ally, stood ready, his glowing weapon lowered, but not holstered. The human soldiers had not fired, but they hadn't welcomed him either. They looked to the captain, waiting. The captain's name was Rhodes, a man David had served with before. A soldier who followed orders, nothing else. Rhodes stepped closer. His helmet was off now, his face hard. You disobeyed direct orders. Carter, you brought an enemy to our landing zone. You're lucky I haven't shot you already. David didn't blink. She's a child. She's not the enemy. Rhodes scoffed. They're all the enemy. She's royalty, David snapped. She's the key to peace. You fire that gun, and this war will never end. Rhodes didn't respond right away. He turned, whispered something into his comm, then looked back. You're not the only one with orders. Behind him, more soldiers arrived, higher command officers. One wore a long black coat and bore the symbol of Earth's High Defense Council. General Halden. David's heart sank. Halden was known for one thing: no mercy. Private Carter, Halden said, stepping forward. You have committed an act of treason. You brought a classified alien asset into restricted airspace. You ignored a withdrawal order. You pointed weapons at your own squad. I protected a life, David said firmly. Halden's eyes narrowed. Stand down. Hand over the girl. Rhea pulled closer to David, clearly frightened. David looked down at her, then back up at Halden. No. In one swift motion, Halden drew a sidearm and fired. The shot rang out across the field. But it wasn't aimed at David. It hit the alien soldier's center of mass. He fell back, groaning, his armor cracked, smoke rising from the wound. No. David dropped to his knees beside him. Rhea screamed, her voice high and painful. Blue energy sparked around her hands. David grabbed his comm and shouted, You didn't have to shoot him. He helped us. Halden stepped forward coldly. I warned you, you don't make deals with aliens. David stood slowly, fists clenched. You just killed the only one who knew how to return her home. She be studied, Halden said. We'll get what we need. No, David said again. You won't touch her. Rhodes raised his weapon. Others followed. David wrapped his arms around Rhea. Rhea trembled. Her glowing hands touched David's chest, something strange. HAPPENEDA, pulse of energy rippled through the field. Weapons froze mid-aim. Comms crackled into silence, and for a moment, everyone saw it. Memories, not just David's, not just Rhea's, but the alien soldiers too. His people had tried to stop the war. They were ignored. His family died trying to evacuate civilians. David's loss, his daughter. His grief, his hope. Rhea's confusion, her escape. Her fear, it all appeared in flashes of pure thought inside every soldier's mind. When the light faded, silence returned. Even Halden looked shaken. What was that? One soldier whispered. David held Rhea close. That was truth. The alien soldier groaned again, still alive. David rushed to his side. I need a medic, he shouted. No one moved. Rhodes looked around. The soldiers were confused, some lowering their guns, some unsure. That moment of truth had shaken their orders. But Halden wasn't finished. He raised his gun again, pointing at Rhea. She's a weapon. I'll finish this myself. A shot fired, but it didn't come from Halden. It hit him. Rhodes had pulled the trigger. Everyone stared. Halden collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Rhodes looked at David, breathing hard. I served under you in the Eastern Campaign. I watched your daughter's ceremony after she died. I never forgot what you said. David blinked. What did I say? You said peace takes bravery, more than war ever will. Rhodes lowered his weapon. I'm with you, David. The others followed his lead. The squad moved to form a protective circle around them. Medics rushed to the alien soldier, lifting him onto a stretcher. Rhea looked up at David. She didn't speak. But she didn't have to. He had saved her now. Others had followed. That night, David sat by the fire outside the medical tent. Rhea slept peacefully beside him. The alien soldier lay under treatment, breathing steady. The stars above were brighter than they'd been in days. David looked up and whispered, "Emily, I couldn't save you. But I did something right. And maybe that was enough." The next morning was calm. For the first time in weeks, there were no explosions, no gunfire, no orders shouted across radios. Just wind brushing through the trees and the soft crackling of small campfires. The war had paused because of one child. David sat on a rock near the edge of the base, watching the sunrise. The sky was soft orange, streaked with gold. Rhea sat beside him, legs crossed, staring at the sky too. Her glowing eyes reflected the light like twin suns. She leaned gently on his arm. "You sleep okay?" he asked. She nodded and offered a quiet smile. Her words were still few, but her eyes said everything. Across the field, soldiers both human and alien stood in lines, unarmed. Not enemies. Not today. They had come to witness the moment. The alien soldier who helped David now stood upright, his wounds bandaged, armor replaced by a ceremonial robe. His name, Sherelle, had been spoken with respect among his people. David stepped forward with Rhea and Sherelle by his side. A podium stood between both groups. A temporary truce had been declared. Not signed yet, but this meeting would decide everything. General Monroe, a more level-headed leader than Halden, now stood in command after the fallout from the betrayal. She nodded at David to begin. David looked at the crowd, swallowed hard, and spoke. "I was trained to fight enemies. I was taught to follow orders, but war taught me something different." He looked down at Rhea. She didn't shoot at me. She didn't threaten anyone. She was just crying, scared, alone. And in that moment, I didn't see an alien. I saw a child who needed help. David turned to the humans behind him. "We call ourselves brave, but real bravery isn't just charging into battle. It's running into danger to save someone who's not like you, someone you were told to hate." He paused. Humanity is not just muscle and firepower. It's heart. A silence fell over the field. Even the birds seemed to stop. Then Sherelle stepped forward. He raised one hand to the sky and said something in his language. A translator drone hovered nearby and echoed the words, "Our people saw humans as destroyers. But one man showed us another side. He showed us mercy. He protected our future. He is not just a soldier, he is a bridge." He placed his hand on David's shoulder, then knelt in front of Rhea, one by one. The alien warriors did the same, and then so did the humans. David stood frozen for a moment, unsure what to do. Rhea took his hand and pulled him down gently. He knelt with her, eye level with both sides, united in peace. 2 weeks later, news of the event had spread fast. Across human colonies and alien cities, images of David holding Rhea in the battlefield played again and again on screens. Human soldier saves enemy child. Alien child sparks hope for peace. Bravery without borders. David had been called a hero, a traitor, a fool, a savior. He ignored the noise. He only cared that Rhea was sci-fanned, smiling again. 1 month later, Unity Square. Earth it was raining gently as thousands gathered in front of a new monument. The statue was simple, a human soldier, kneeling, holding a small alien child in his arms, both looking ahead, not at war but at a future full of stars. A plaque beneath it read, "He didn't see an alien. He saw a child," and that changed everything. David stood nearby, dressed in a simple jacket, no medals, no rank. Rhea stood beside him in a white robe, her small hand gripping his tightly. She looked up at him. "We go home?" He smiled softly. "Yes, it's time." A large ship waited behind them, half human, half alien design. Peace delegates, artists, scholars, and children were all boarding, not to escape, to build something new together. As they walked up the ramp, someone shouted behind them, "David!" He turned. Rhodes, now a peace officer, jogged up and gave him a salute. David nodded. "You coming?" Rhodes smirked. "I don't want to miss the start of the galaxy's first joint school." They both laughed. Rhea waved at him, and Rhodes winked back. Inside the ship, Rhea sat near a window, eyes wide as the stars began to move past. David sat beside her, watching her reflection in the glass. Once he had lost everything, but through one brave act, in one impossible moment, he found something worth more. Hope not just for himself, for everyone.